my name is Christina and I'm a self-made millionaire. And what if I told you that the biggest financial decisions of my life had almost nothing to do with saving or picking the right stock? It was some of the unconventional life choices that I made that put me on a completely different financial trajectory. I recently made a video of my top 5 simple money tips, and these things are really crucial to implement. But I realized for myself that was really only half the story. The other half is mindset principles and some of the life choices that I made that accelerated my wealth. You can have a life you truly love without sacrificing financial freedom. So let's dive in. Unconventional life choice number 1, geographic arbitrage. When you are younger and particularly child-free, your greatest asset is mobility. And don't be afraid to move places where your skills are in higher demand and therefore your pay will be higher, and also where the cost of living is lower. Ideally, it's both things, and that's what geographic arbitrage is. I have lived in 7 different cities in my life, and every single move benefited me financially. So I'll give 2 specific examples of this. When I was early in my career, I was living in Vancouver. I was only a couple years out of school, and I was making about $45,000 a year working for a Big 4 accounting firm. Now, if you've never been to Vancouver, Canada, it's such a beautiful, wonderful place to live. It has a high cost of living because it's desirable, but people don't make actually very much money there in relation to that. What I realized is I could be doing the exact same job, literally at the same accounting firm, in a different city, which was Calgary in Canada. In Calgary, the cost to income ratio is so much more favorable. There is a reason for this. I do believe like the very cold climate there and some other aspects about the city make it a little bit less desirable, but it also has such a booming economy because of the concentration of oil and gas. And therefore, it was a city that was willing to pay a lot more for my skills. In the end, I was able to make 44% more. My rent was significantly cheaper. The cost of my living expenses went down. I also was working less hours because the lifestyle was just different there. And it was such a learning opportunity for me on geographic arbitrage and to just constantly look for those types of opportunities that will better your situation. Now, was it my dream place to live? Honestly, no. So you know what? I just moved again. I then moved to San Francisco. It's all about moving to where the action is and where my skills were in higher demand and I could command a higher salary. The cost of living did go up significantly, but my income went up so much more proportionately that it was a very smart financial move. Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and moving to a new place is not just good financially in this case, but so much for personal development and the skills that you learn. Even starting your network, making friends from scratch, like all of it is hard, but there is so much reward. Even if you move somewhere and you don't like it, just remember that you can leave. It doesn't have to be permanent at all. And I guarantee even if you don't love it in the end, you will have gained a lot in terms of personal development and investing in yourself. Unconventional life choice number 2, switching jobs or careers. There was a study in 2023 by Wealthify that showed that people that do switch jobs more frequently earn 31% more than people who just stuck to one place. So doing things like seeking out other job offers, interviewing, understanding where your pay is relative to what the market is delivering are just good best practices to do to ensure that you are getting paid competitively, even if you do stay, or if you get a great job opportunity, you can switch and earn more. When it comes to switching careers, now I made quite a big pivot in my life. So my background is in finance and accounting. I put about 10 years of education. I sort of threw all of that out the window by switching to sales. I realized in my career that number 1, salespeople make a lot more money. Yes, there's more risk, but there's more reward. And also it was just such a better fit for my particular skill sets and strengths that it made sense for me to make this move. My opinion is that it is almost impossible to go from point A to point B in one shot. So I'll share what I did. So number 1, I switched careers within the same company. If I had gone and tried to apply for a sales job in a different company with no experience, I never would have even gotten selected for an interview. But what I did internally was actually networked with a team that I wanted to work with, and I did provide some free labor for them. I worked for free for a little while built the experience, and also built a network there so that when an opportunity did come up, they could refer me and recommend me for a role. I found what I call a bridge role. So it was within the sales organization, but what I was actually doing really leveraged my financial skill sets. I was building financial assessments for our external clients. Getting the experience in that team, in that bridge role, then positioned me very well for when a sales opportunity came up in a very frontline sales type role I was looking for. I was able to do that one pretty well. Unconventional life choice number 3, live below your means. Lifestyle inflation is the number one killer of wealth, and that means when your spending increases as much or even more with your income. When you start earning a little bit more money, it's tempting to then spend a lot more money, and perhaps you're surrounding yourself with a different community of people that are spending more money and they have certain things, and it's this keeping up with the Joneses thing. It's all about spending money on what you really value. Not about not spending money, but just being thoughtful about what is it that you value. So for myself, I lived in tiny studio apartments that I rented until I was, I think, 30 years old. Even when I started making good money, I wasn't home very often. It just wasn't something I valued, and I was very happy doing that. Also, don't value nice cars for myself personally. I never even owned a car until I think I was 32. I've lived in walkable cities, taking public transport. I take Uber. I believe I probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 10 years by not having a car. Well, there were things that I obviously did value spending money on, like travel. I spent a lot of money on travel, and I believe that actually was a good investment in my own personal growth. When I did travel, particularly when I didn't have as much money, I did it cheaply. I didn't stay in really nice hotels. I did a big trip to Africa for 3 months across 10 different countries, and I camped every day. But it was the most amazing experience of my life. So a good exercise might be to think back and reflect on what are some of the bigger purchases that you've made in the last, say, like 6 months. Did you value it? Did it spark joy? When it comes to things that you don't value, that is where you can really save a lot of money. Unconventional life choice number 4, create a financial dream team with your partner. For me, it was my number one greatest advantage to building wealth. I married someone who has complete alignment in terms of my money values, and we act as a team in all of our financial decisions. There are a lot of studies that support financial stress being a number one cause of conflict in relationships and a reason for divorce. Divorce is something you definitely don't want to go through, of course, for emotional reasons, but also for financial reasons. It's a wealth killer. You are going to get only a fraction of your assets if you do go through divorce. You're going to have to split it with your partner, but also a big chunk of that is going to the government in terms of taxes when you liquidate assets in order to divide them. So of course, this is something everybody wants to avoid. My husband and I, we have regular conversations about money in terms of how we invest. We have joint finances. Everything is completely transparent. We make every decision together as a team, and we are very, very aligned in terms of all of those big decisions and how we handle our money. If you are not yet married, or even if you are married but you haven't had these conversations, I strongly suggest you do this with your partner. Just ask questions like, what is your money psychology? Like, what role did money play in your childhood? And how do you think that shaped you? Do you have debt? How much debt? What type of debt? What role does debt play in your life? Do you feel it's something that is a tool to create more money, or is it a burden to you? Would you consider yourself a spender or a saver, or why? If you had a windfall of, say, $100,000, what would you do with that money? And why would you do that? These types of conversations with your spouse or future partner are so essential. If you are a saver, you can have all the savings in the world, but if your partner is completely on the opposite page and just wants to spend everything, that's just gonna set you up for conflict for the rest of your relationship. It's not about judging each other's past, it's about gaining a better understanding and more empathy for each other so that you can build the life that you want together as a team, not individual goals, but joint goals. Unconventional life choice number 5, choosing to have one child later in life. Okay, this is a deeply personal decision, and of course there are so many variables to consider when you want to have children or if you want to have children, but a big one is the financial impact. And so for myself, I really leaned into career in my 20s and 30s. I got promotions, I switched jobs, I relocated a lot for work, and I was able to build my career and build wealth in a way that I just could not have done as a parent. The reason why this was financially beneficial and something that a lot of people don't consider is your greatest asset to building wealth is time and compound interest. And I talk about this in my top 5 simple money tips video, and which we'll go into more detail there if you'd like. If you can start saving and investing earlier, you benefit from compound interest, which is the snowball effect of getting more and more returns on your investment over time. So let me make an example that will pretty much blow your mind. If you invest $1,000 every month starting at 25 instead of starting at 40 years old, by the time you're 75, the difference of how much wealth you'll have is over $13 million. That's right. If you start 15 years earlier, investing at 25 instead of investing at 40, you can earn $13 million more by the time you're ready to retire. That is essentially what I did. I was leaning into career, I was investing more, I was benefiting from compound interest, and then I made the decision to have a child when I was in my late 30s. Of course, there are downsides to that. There's all the emotional reasons. There's the biological clock. There is the fact that, when my child is older, I will also be quite old. There are a lot of considerations there, but hopefully that is a very powerful illustration to show what a big significant difference it can make in terms of setting yourself up well for the future. I also decided to only have one child. That was not necessarily a financial decision, although that was an aspect to my decision making. Of course, having less children instead of having multiple children is also going to be a really big difference in terms of wealth creation over time and leading the type of life you want with financial freedom. And if you're interested, I actually went through and revealed my true costs of having a child, because let me tell you, a lot of what you research online is totally false. There are a lot of hidden costs to having children that I think is important to know so you can financially plan. So feel free to check out that video. These top 5 life choices I made, while they were unconventional, I definitely did not just make them for financial reasons. They helped me lead a life that I find personally fulfilling and that I love, aligning the heart with the ledger. So if these resonated with you, feel free to hit that subscribe button and please leave a comment. What's an unconventional life choice that you made that was so beneficial for you that you'd like to share? I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you next time.